Hello everybody, welcome to Crafty Soup. My name is Misty. Today I'm going to share this layout with you as part of the design team over at the Counterfeit Kit Challenge. We are telling stories of cozy adventures, and I will walk you through this layout as I create. I'm going to share just a couple of small tips on die cutting fun foam to use for your titles, and I'm going to be diving in deep onto how I create my embellishment clusters when I am working. So let's go ahead and dive into this process video. So of course, the first place to start this layout is with the photo of the story that I want to tell, since we are talking about cozy adventures. I pulled out this photo from my story binder, which might be from 2019 or 2018 even. I'm not quite sure. And then I pulled out my counterfeit kit, and I start with pulling a few embellishments that I think can go along with this story. And then once I have a little tray of things set aside, I turn to my papers to see what I think will work. I really like this blue and yellow floral because I think it lends to the coziness and a bit of a spring vibe because this story happened in the spring. I wanted to pull in some pink because that cup in the picture has a lot of pink in it. I also wanted to make sure I had a solid enough pattern to help delineate the layers of my patterns here, because that pink pattern on top of the florals is just a little bit too busy, so adding in that more solid plaid helps calm everything down. I have a big long strip of a ledger print paper there that I'm going to do with my journaling. Now, I did have a question about how I die cut my alphabet out of fun foam, and it's really easy. You just, at least for me, I just use the basic sandwich for die cutting paper, and it does just fine with die cutting this fun foam or craft foam. And I am doing my alphabets that way with my kit this month. And I am adding in a little of a word or a phrase thicker in gold to double up my title, because I like having mixed and matched alphabet and fonts in my titles. So hopefully, if you've never tried die cutting fun foam before, you will go ahead and give that a try. You can do it in all kinds of things, including shapes and letters. All right, with fun foam, I do line it up on my grid mat, and then once it's all aligned, I will grab it with a piece of low tack tape and then add liquid glue to the back and then let it adhere down before I move on. All right, the heart of what I want to talk about today is all about embellishment clusters. So you can see here, I have a pre-made embellishment cluster that I put together off screen, and I did this knowing full well where it would go in its placement and stuff. I did create the embellishment cluster as its own piece so that I could kind of move it around on the photo a little bit so that it nestles into a specific nook. And I have one more embellishment cluster up there in the upper left corner, but what I want to show you today is my thought process when I'm putting clusters together. Now, I'm not an expert at clusters and everybody's style is different, but I just wanted to share what I think about when I'm going through this. And the first thing is I want to have a foundation piece that everything is going to link back to. So it won't necessarily be directly touching that foundation piece, but you can follow a chain of pieces back to that foundation. And this was an embellishment that I pulled out, and I thought that was going to be the foundational piece, but because I have a lot of other pieces going on that I wanted to use, I decided I needed a little tag or tab or border or something like that to work with. And there's not a lot of space on this edge of the layout, so I chose a small piece to be my foundation. Normally I would choose something larger so that everything can kind of fit on top, but in this case I chose something much smaller, and as you see me adding pieces to this, it's all going to kind of flow off of that base. So I have that word embellishment up there, and then I tuck the next piece behind that. So definitely layering things on top and underneath is part of my embellishment process. Now here I had a piece and it is not going to work in that spot. And that's because it creates this little rectangle of trapped space. And that is a technical design term. And that trapped space can draw the eye more than everything else does. So it becomes more of a distraction rather than a feature. Now you can cover up trapped space with other embellishments, but I'm going to keep working here and see what I like and what I come up with. I definitely loved these little birds in the scrapbook kit that I built. And if you don't know about the kit builds, you should probably start there, and I'll link you up to that. Both up in the little corner and down in the show description, you can find that. So you can see I started moving some things around. I moved that scarf so that now that it's nestled in between the words on that embellishment. So when I am building clusters, I definitely make sure things are touching. Here I pointed out that I added more trees over there, and with that leaf embellishment and the 2 trees, that kind of makes its own little mini cluster of 3 elements. And I definitely use the rule of thirds and the rule of threes, which are tightly intertwined, a lot when I'm working on layouts and clusters. So that helps me kind of keep things a little bit balanced. Now, you saw me cut apart that other embellishment. If things aren't working as they are in whole, don't be worried about cutting things apart. I mean, you can even just recycle that other piece, but in my case, I will save it and see if I can make use of it later. And, you know, periodically I will go through my stuff, and if things aren't, if the things that I've kept aren't really working for me anymore, I will just make a little donation pile and I offer those up to, you know, people in the neighborhood through one of our free cycle kind of groups. All right, so now you've seen I'd add that cutoff piece down below my title, and my little, I guess it's kind of an award badge. It has a directional motif to it, and I wanted that for this story because this story was about having a day out and about in a new city. And so that motif mattered. But what I'm trying to get to the point here is that I try to nestle things together. So the words on that tag nestle right into the nook created on that that kind of badge piece. And you can see that I'm starting to nestle other things here and there. I tried putting that one tree nestled underneath the bird, and I didn't really like the placement of that because it's right underneath the bird's tail. And if you can imagine what I'm thinking about things being under birds' tails, you might imagine why I decided not to place it there. And plus, I liked those trees over on the side with that clustering of 3. So here we go. I feel like I'm finally making some final decisions. And you can see I'm pointing out with my little pokey tool here how when I'm layering these things down, I am leaving edges that create movement around my cluster. So everything's not aligned up straight. I offset things a lot. So you can see I've got a circle and then 2 nooks, and then this tree is going to create a different shape going around the other side. So I really try to think about the shapes of the pieces that I'm putting down, and that I try to keep my lines moving so that they're not just straight and harsh lines. Now, there are definitely other times to use those straight lines, but in general, I like to do it this way for most of my projects. Okay, I do de-tack a lot of my stickers as I'm working on clusters so that I can move them around, and that means I have to add glue back to them when I'm ready to stick them down. And that's fine with me because I need that flexibility, because I do think a lot about these things when I'm moving them around and deciding on placement. All right, so I'm putting that word piece back in place, and I'm sure to nestle it against that badge, and trying to get that all lined up how I want it to go. Tweezers are definitely helpstock for this kind of thing. And I've got, again, with pieces, I've got a mixture of chipboard and cardstock die cuts. And I have popped a couple of things up on foam dots so that I'm getting depth and dimension throughout this cluster as I go. Like the small tree I popped up on foam dots. And I did that. Oh, here we're talking about that bird did not leave any trapped space. It's still open and flows. But I have this other little scarfy piece that I want to add in here. So I'm playing with its placement. But going back to those trees, I popped the little tree up on foam dots because it is visually and literally smaller. And so when you pop it up on foam dots, it becomes visually a little bit larger. So that kind of balances it between the larger tree. Okay, here's this little arrow piece that I put. And again, I thought about putting it under that bird. And again, I nixed that idea because it was not a good thing. But here you can see I'm pointing out those nooks and crannies once again that I do, and I nestled those little arrow pieces around the words of that piece once again. And then I realized my other clusters had some gold embellishments in them. And I definitely try to balance my clusters so that if I've got one style of item in another cluster or one color of an item in another cluster, I'm sure to add something that ties into that in future clusters. So they don't have to be exactly matchy, but I do like them to be related somehow. So I'm adding some more gold into this cluster. You can see on the screen, the left-hand cluster has a gold heart. So while they're not the exact same elements, they are both the same material and color. So those are definitely things that I work on a lot when I'm clustering up. Now, in one of the lower clusters, which you'll see in the final photos, there were some wood veneer birds. And so I added that one into this cluster as well. And it also helps break up that rectangular space that, again, was starting to act like trap space on my base tag there. So that's why I put that little bird there to help keep that line moving and flowing. So that is the final look at my layout. We'll take a peek at the close-ups here, and you can see some of the other clusters at work. I hope hearing my thought process helps you when you are clustering. I know some people struggle with that, and in fact, I did for a long time until I heard some other YouTubers, scrapbookers, talk about their process. So now I'm on the end of being able to share mine with you. I will see you next week for I think I have a full schedule next week, so I hope you will join me then. And until then, have an artful day.